evidently, CEOs are getting assassinated on the sides of the street in my city. And I gotta say right now, straight out the gate, I don't think it was a solo job. People tend to think for whatever reason, perhaps, this man was just obviously a situation where these people denying individuals care, whatever the case may be, and then all of a sudden people get frustrated, and there are some who happen to take things to another level. He was arrested. I believe his name was, what was the name of the...
Luigi
Luigi.
Mangione?
Yeah, Luigi Mangione, something of that nature. And he was arrested in a McDonald's, of all places, and evidently had a manifesto on him alongside the murder weapon.
Yeah. No, it was like in his dorm or something. So.
Right. So he never disposed of it and was able to get caught, I believe, 4 days after the assassination. I think this is a genjutsu of all genjutsus. It's an ocular kind of maneuver that's here. I don't think that he did it. I don't think
What do you think he's being framed?
I think there's an element of him being framed, and then, well, there's a bit of cognitive dissonance where I think perhaps he did maybe go through with it, but he didn't act alone. It wasn't a situation where it was just him. I think the way that it's being painted right now is just, he was just this lone shooter, frustrated after, having an operation. I saw something where they released like X-ray images of his back or something of that nature.
Yeah.
And then other situations where he had relatives that could not get care, so that set him over the edge. They had tweets from friends that were trying to reach out to him, but hadn't heard from him in some months, and maybe he went off the rails. All of these different things, I just don't believe that he was acting alone. I just think that this is probably a cover for something, because it just seems a bit too, it seems a bit too convenient in how they were able to apprehend him.
No, I don't think so. I think it makes sense because it just sounds like a sloppy college kid murder. Right? Like he pulled down his mask to flirt with someone at McDonald's or Starbucks, and that's how he got caught. I mean, that's not working. I think that's just like, that's what a college kid would do. Some stupid shit like that.
But the fact that, because anybody, especially in this day and age, I think anybody who were to go to this length to go and eliminate somebody, if you will, to then lower the mask, it just seems like, why would somebody do that?
But we've seen, and you do these kind of videos all the time where it's like, you idiot, why would you do this? Like, we've seen people do dumber things. And it just seems like another stupid human error where it's like, you got cocky, you thought, I don't know what you thought, that you weren't being filmed, that you wouldn't trace you back. It just looks like a mistake by an amateur.
I did see a article, and also a tweet as well, where they said that he disposed the bag, but there was Monopoly money in there. I don't know if that was legitimate or not.
I can look into that.
It's just one of those things where I'm like, to see somebody go to those lengths to where you purchase a silencer, you then you have that, you take out the CEO, you escape through Central Park. Essentially, they cannot locate you for all intents and purposes. Even when he had a face exposed, there's a ton of different faces in the world that do look relatively, similar. And there were some people saying, well, maybe he's already left the country, whatever the case may be. To still stick around, be at a McDonald's, face exposed, knowing that you just did, it's like, were you trying to be caught? Was it a situation where you're like, hey, I've had enough of this? Then when he did get apprehended, he said, well, they're lying to the people, or whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of different factors, because he's saying that the American people are being played, or whatever the case may be. But then at the same time, you had your face exposed, you're the same guy. Are there forensics that had already, went and confirmed that it was indeed him that was there? There's a lot of different moving factors. I look at one of these things with my eyebrows raised, like I feel like something's not right here. It can't just be the way it's being played out for us. Because although there is an element of just being a very stupid college kid being incredibly sloppy, but to go to those lengths to where you tried to cover those tracks, but then you left so many different open doors to where you could have got caught. It just doesn't.
But he had a manifesto. He wanted to be caught.
No, but that's the weird thing about the whole situation is that something tells me that manifesto might have been something that was planted rather than.
I don't know. I think we're all so just used to the government being in cahoots and up to something that we're like, there is no way. The government has to be up to something. I think this actually just might be a college kid, radicalized, shot him, and I don't think he thought he would get away with it and was just ready.
Do you think maybe the guilt played a role? I think if anything, if there was any element that may have opened up the door to where it's like, you know what? I'm going to be very sloppy in how I go about it. It's like, because I would assume you take somebody's life, that changes your life forever. Sure. So there has to be a moment in which you have to live with that. And maybe he couldn't live with it.
I don't think dude, I've done stupid things in my life. And right before I know I'm going to do something stupid, I get nervous. I don't think about flirting with someone before I go do something stupid. I think that flirtation thing, it just says so much about how convinced he was that he was doing the right thing. I think he wants to go down as a martyr of some kind.
Maybe that's an element. That's an element.
But who knows? I saw his lawyer come out and say, like, there is no proof that he is the shooter. He's like, I've still yet to see any proof that he's
unless there's like forensics that can come back and definitely prove like, hey, it's his fingerprints that's on the weapon or whatever the case may be.
But now I'm thinking like all this manifesto stuff and all these journals that they found. There was something about he wanted to bomb the CEO, but instead of shooting him, but he said that it would hurt too many innocent people, so he didn't want to do that. But yeah, it's kind of crazy, huh?
Yeah, it's very bizarre. Then even the reward was supposed to be $50,000 that was paid out to whoever can help in the findings of the culprit. Now there's a technicality to where the person who did go and, for all intents and purposes, snitch,
the McDonald's
isn't gonna get paid out because, well, they didn't call the hotline; they called 911.
What?
This is one of those situations
where
where
Crime Stoppers?
Right, like you're supposed to call Crime Stoppers, but instead you called 911. This is one of those situations where I'm like, why would you ever have something like this to where there's dissension amongst the ranks on paying somebody out who helped you? When if people now turn their back and you have no help, crime is not getting solved outside of you being able to pull cameras and doing all of the detective work on your own. Why would you not immediately say, hey, we appreciate you helping us out. We're going to pay you out. There should be no sort of controversy regarding the payment.
Yeah.
Whatsoever. It's one of those things that's incredibly mind-boggling because how is this going to lead towards people wanting to give you tips towards solving crime outside of those who are actually affected? Because I can promise you the McDonald's worker who did the phone call was not directly affected by this. It's not as if the CEO was, that was a relative of mine. Well, we were at Thanksgiving together.
Something tells me they didn't even know about the reward. I think it's like something that they made the connection. They're like, I got to say something. But I'm sure they didn't even do it with the reward in mind. And now to know that there was a reward, you're not going to get it anyway. It's like,
well, that's kind of one of those things where I think ultimately, I think they would have had to know there was a reward.
You think so?
Because you can call 911 and be like, hey, I think the guy is here or whatever the case may be. But that's an odd phone call. That's a very Karen-like phone call to make. and just like, hey, this guy looks very, very familiar or something of that. But unless you're able to, one of those,
but
like
also,
you're looking
how
at the
many
photo and
people
everything.
Are going into that McDonald's, and how do you remember he was all masked up and he had a thing? Like, are you really gonna make that connection? I don't get it.
And that's why I'm so apprehensive to believing the legitimacy behind saying, hey, this is the guy who did it, and they're able to just catch you casually eating at a McDonald's. Because although I would like to think in situations like this, whoever the hitman may have been is somewhat professional to where they understand, hey, I've got to cover my tracks. I got to lay low. It's the most dumb way to get caught. So it's one of those things like this. There's no way. Because I don't know how easy it is to acquire a silencer on the black market. I'm assuming you
I
can't
think
just
you
buy
just
it
buy
outright.
one. It doesn't have to be a black market. I think
Well,
you can
maybe,
just buy one.
maybe. Well, whatever the case.
I'm afraid to look it up, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't want to look it up because it's a red flag. This IP address over here. And now you got people knocking on your door. Well, confiscate your dog, or shut down your Tesla. That'd be a terrible situation. But it's one of those things where I just look at it. I'm scratching my head every single time I look into the case, and I refuse to go down a deep rabbit hole because I know it's going to activate the conspiracy theorists within me.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. Like, all right, I'll let things develop, but I am very skeptical.
Yeah, you saw him shouting outside the courthouse, like, "This is what is it?
He
This is
said-
an insult to the American
It's
people."
an insult to the American people, everything of that nature. And it's just one of those things like, all right, if he's now defensive trying to claim as if it wasn't him, but you're dead to rights with the evidence, then, you're just somebody who's just outwards just a liar. But then that's why I'm looking forward to seeing what the forensics will say. But then
Totally.
at the same time, who's to say they can't just set it up a situation where it's like, no, it was definitely him. But if an alibi were to develop and he's somewhere else, then what?